Alright, today we are doing solving quadratic equations by completing the square. And as always, we just follow these steps. Completing the square, it says it is possible to take any quadratic equation, create a perfect square trinomial, and solve it in a similar way. This method is called completing the square. So these are the steps. Rewrite as ax squared plus bx equals c. So we move c over. Then step 2, divide both sides by a, so it becomes x squared plus bx equals c. Then step 3, we complete the square by taking half of b, square it, and add it to both sides of the equation. Step 4, we factor that perfect square trinomial. Step number 5, take the square root of both sides. This will create two cases because the square root has both a positive and negative value. For example, if we were taking the square root of 4, it could be 2 and negative 2 because 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4 as well. So we'll be getting two answers for these. And then it says solve both equations, simplify all irrational and complex answers. That's why we learned how to simplify radicals and how to do the imaginary numbers, because they might pop up here. All right, so we look at number 1. Scroll down a little bit. All right, we look at number 1. X squared minus 18x plus 56 equals 0. Step number 1, rewrite as ax plus bx equals c. So first thing we do is just subtract 56. Subtract 56. Move it over. X squared minus 18x equals negative 56. That's step 1. We rewrote it as ax squared plus bx equals c. So we had to subtract 56 to move it over. Then the next step, divide both sides by a, so it becomes x squared plus bx equals c. Here, a is 1, so we don't have to divide anything. We see there's nothing in front of this x. So we don't have to divide. It'd be dividing by 1. If you see number 2, 3, and 4 all have an a value, so you would have number 2, you would divide by 4. Number 3, you divide by 3, and number 4, you divide by 4. But since number 1 doesn't have an a value, we just divide by 1. Basically, you skip step number 2. Step number 3, complete the square by taking half of b, square, and add it to both sides of the equation. So first off, which one is b? We know that's 18x. All right. So half of negative 18 is negative 9. Negative 9 squared is 81. So we took half of b, which is 9, we squared it, got 81, and now we add it to both sides of the equation. So it becomes x squared minus 18x plus 81 equals, what is negative 56 plus 81? You can do that in a calculator real quick. Negative 56 plus 81 is 25. All right. Now it says factor the perfect square trinomial. Now, perfect square trinomial means when I factor this, usually back before Thanksgiving break, when we factored something, we would get two parentheses answers like this, correct? The way this works, it's called a perfect square trinomial because what we're going to get is the same here and the same here. All right? And you'll see. Let me erase this so we can keep going. If you don't remember how to factor, I'll slow it down. I'll do it the long way. We label A, B, and C. We need to find factor that adds up to B, which is negative 18, and multiplies to be A times C. This should be familiar. A times C is 81. Let's do our factors of 81. 1 and 81, can that get us to 18? No. 2 doesn't go into it. 3 and 27, no. Keep going, keep going. 9 and 9, can that get us to negative 18? Yes. How can it add up to negative 18 but multiply to be positive 81? Make them both negative. Negative 9 times negative 9 is a positive 81. Negative 9 plus negative 9 more is negative 18. So we found our factors. when we come over here and we write it, because a is 1, we just keep it as is. So x minus 9, x minus 9. Just like I said, what would happen? It's a perfect square trinomial. So both of these parentheses are the same exact equation. So x minus 9, or you could write it as x minus 9 squared. All right. So we factored the perfect square trinomial. X minus 9 squared, don't forget to bring down the 25, equals 25. The reason I want you to write it as x minus 9 squared is because, watch this. Step number 5, it says take the square root of both sides. This will create two cases because the square root has both positive and negative value. So what we're going to do here, square root. The square root of x minus 9 squared is just x minus 9. Think about it. If this x minus 9 was a number, like 2 squared, square root of 2 squared is just 2. Okay, you're basically eliminating this. So x minus 9 equals, and the square root of 25 is 5. That's easy. We didn't even need to simplify any radicals. That's easily square rootable. Square root of 25 is 5. So we have our equation x minus 9 equals 5, and then x minus 9 equals negative 5. Then we just solve both. Move 9 over, move 9 over, move 9 over, and move 9 over. First x down here, x equals 14. X down here, negative 5 plus 9 is a positive 4. So after all that work, number 1, x equals 14 and 4. And we're done. So while you finish writing, I'm going to tell you all the steps again. So step number 1, rewrite as ax squared plus bx equals c. Then step number 2, divide both sides by a, so it becomes x squared plus bx equals c. There's no a value here. So I move the 56 over to get x squared minus 18x equals negative 56. Then I didn't need to divide by a because a was 1. Then we complete the square by taking half of b. Negative 18 was b. Half of negative 18 was negative 9. Square it, which negative 9 times negative 9 is positive 81. And then add it to both sides of the equation. So x squared minus 18x, add that 81. It just comes down here. All right. Equals negative 56 plus 81 is a positive 25. Then we factor this perfect trinomial, and we get x minus 9 squared equals 25. And we square root both sides. I'm down here now. So square root of x minus 9 squared is x minus 9. Then the square root of 25 is 5. X minus 9 equals 5. And then the second case is x minus 9 equals negative 5. Then I just solve for x. How do I solve for x? Get it by itself. Move the 9 over. On both cases, x equals 14. And x equals 4. All right. Again, it's not hard, it's just time consuming. Takes a while to do. That's how most math with quadratics work. We're going to move on. We're going to do number 3, and then you're on your own to finish the worksheet. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So 2 problems I think is enough to get us practice. I just want to show you what happens when it's not a perfect square. Like up here, it was square root of 25, which is easy. That's a perfect square root. All right, so number 3, make sure we're looking at number 3, 3x squared minus 30x equals 69. Step number 1, rewrite as ax squared plus bx equals c. It's already written like that, so we get to skip step 1. Step 2, divide both sides by a. This time there is an a value to get our new equation. And that's going to be, I'm going to write it up here to save room, divide by 3x squared minus 10x equals 23. Okay. Then our next step, complete the square by taking half of b. square it, and then add it to both sides. So half of b is -5 squared is 25. So we're going to add 25 to both sides. X squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 23 plus 25 is 48. You can see right away we're not going to have a perfect square because that number is 48. But now we're going to factor this perfect trinomial right here. And again, I can do it the long way just to show you. B is -10. A times C is 25. So what two numbers can get us to, or multiply to be 25 and add up to be -10? 5 and 5. How do we get those to be -10 to add up to be -10? Just like number one, make them both negative. So that'd be x minus 5 squared equals 48. All I did was factor this and got the perfect square trinomial to be x minus 5 squared equals 48. So down here, we're going to square both sides. We know all this does is cancel this and this. So x minus 5 equals square root of 48. This is where we need to remember how to simplify radicals. So the way we do that, in our calculator, we go menu 2, 3, factors 48, and we get square root 2 to the 4th times 3. Then we get square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Then we are looking for partners because it's square root, partner, partner, come outside, 4 square root 3 is the simplest it can get. All right, so we write that here, 4 square root 3. Then we make x minus 5 equals -4 square root 3. Then all we have to do to solve, add 5, add 5, add 5, add 5. Now some of you might think to add 5 plus 4 and 5 plus -4, but all we're really going to do for our final answer is write x equals 5 plus or minus square root, I got a little ahead of myself, x equals 5 plus or minus 4 square root 3. That's all we're doing. What plus or minus means is basically there's two answers, 5 plus 4 square root 3 and 5 minus 4 square root 3, which is exactly what we said. So when we came here, draw my arrow, when we came here, we solved for two of them. This is just a shorter way to say, hey, we got two answers, and it's 5 plus 4 square root 3 and 5 minus 4 square root 3. So the final answer, x equals 5 plus or minus 4 square root 3. So when you don't have a perfect square, like this 48, you need to remember how to simplify radicals, which is what we did about a week ago. Okay? So rewatch the video if you need to, complete the worksheet, turn it in. It shouldn't be too bad. Just let me know if you have any questions.